How you guys doing today? It's Anthony Gangi. Welcome to another episode of Tier Talk. Guys, so to continue our trend of how to get people into this profession, one of the episodes we were doing was based on how to recruit people, how to work with the rookies. But I think there's another area that we could explore, which is basically how to keep the rookies invested. I could safely assume, and this is an assumption, but nothing really is 100% anymore, but that when people are first entering this profession, there should be an excitement, a want to learn, a want to grow that automatically keeps them invested at the very beginning. And then it's up to us to maintain that investment. But times have changed. Now it's a different breed of individuals coming in. But with that said, I still feel it is on us to keep staff motivated, inspired, and therefore I think the topic that we're going to have today with how to keep staff or rookie staff invested still is relevant. It's going to be a great topic. We're going to provide 5 tips that we think will help you with the rookie staff, just basically keeping them motivated. And my guests today are going to be Russ Hamilton and Joe Pomponio. Now, guys, if you haven't, got some books on the market. Inmate Manipulation Decoded. This book is used in training all across the country. It's available on Amazon. The link to that is in the description. And guys, there's just tons of advice here that helps you avoid the games that inmates play. We also have, let's do this one first. How to Succeed in Corrections, Lessons Learned While Working in a Prison. Guys, this book just got tons of advice. It's available by Blue 360 Media. It's not just advice coming from me. It's advice coming from other professionals in the field, all walks of the profession, but it's advice that can help anyone be successful in this career of corrections. And guys, again, this is available at Blue 360 Media. And that is also, the link to that is also in the description. The same as this book, same company, Blue 360 Media. We have tips for new correctional officers and their supervisors. This book is the same type of format, a little bit smaller than that one, but there's still got some other tips in here, not just done by me, but from other professionals in the field. And it partners well with these other 2 books. So I'm telling you guys, if you're entering this profession, these books here not only are relevant in the times we're headed, but these books keep you reminded of the core values, the principles that we need to survive in this profession. Everything that we branch off of today comes from the tree that is mentioned in this book. And that to me is what matters the most. That's why I wrote it. All right, so first let's get Joe. What up, Joe?
Hey, morning, Anthony. How are you, buddy?
Good, sir. Hey, Joe, do you mind introducing yourself to our audience, please?
Absolutely. My name is Joe Pomponio. I'm a retired lieutenant from the Texas Department of Criminal Justice, or betterly known as Texas Department of Corrections, of 30 years, and currently working as an assistant jail administrator for our local sheriff's department in the jail division, and a panel member here for Tier Talk.
And it's always good to have you, Joe. I think it's going to be a good topic. And guess who just showed up? Russ Hamilton. What's up, Russ?
Yeah, bright and early here in sunny California, where we just had a huge blizzard come through this area. And so anyway, I got a snow day yesterday, didn't have to work. So
you had a blizzard. I had some earthquakes.
Yeah, well, we probably had earthquakes too. That's just one of the things that I wouldn't even notice unless it gets above a 7.
Yeah, we're at a 4. Oh, Russ, your microphone's on.
My microphone's on. Yes, of course it is. I turned it on.
It's like when you see someone, driving a car as a kid. I used to yell, "Excuse me, sir, your wheels are turning." I'm like, oh my God. Whatever. Hey, Russ, you mind introducing yourself to our audience, please?
Yeah, so my name is Russ Hamilton. I'm a former and retired sergeant from California Department of Corrections and Rehabilitation. I've also worked as a senior juvenile correctional officer. And I currently work for a private company where we do re-entry and rehabilitation work at a local county probation department and a local county jail where I am a case manager. And I'm also the founder of Keepers of Chaos on Facebook. Boy, my train jumped its tracks right there for a second. And I am also, like Joe, a panel host here on Tier Talk, and I love it.
Yes, and we love having you. And so we got 5 tips. They're not really in any order. These are things that we want to make sure you guys are aware of. I'm sure there's more that could be added, but we usually have a discussion before the show, and then we kind of stretch our mind So I'm going to do the easiest one first, to be honest with you, just to get it out of the way, because I think a lot of people, if you are looking to motivate people to come in this profession, you got to really show them everything that this profession has to offer, especially in today's world. We want people that want to see this as a career and not just as a stepping stone. So I think that once you get people in this profession, a good way to keep them motivated or inspired is once you get to know them. I really put this on our frontline supervisors or even our training team, but definitely our frontline supervisors. When you get to know who those rookies are and you get to see where they have their strengths, where their gifts are, you should try your best to put them in those areas so they can go ahead and develop those strengths, and then maybe see how those strengths can be utilized in other areas for maybe more career advancement. And I think that worked for me. I think there's so many different opportunities in corrections that if you have a gift in something, there's always a spot where that gift could be elevated. But I wanted to get this one done first because I think this is pretty much surface. You want people to stay here, you got to give them opportunities. Opportunities, one, where they can seek higher positions, or also opportunities just for them to grow and develop in whatever their areas of strengths are. So I'll go with Russ first, and then we'll go to Joe, and then we'll reverse the order for the next one. But show them career opportunities. What are we talking about here, Russ? What type of career opportunities do we have in corrections?
So this is one of the things where, maybe in some smaller facilities, especially when we're talking about jails and things like that, there may not be as many as if you work in a larger setting, but still there's a lot of different things out there that you can get involved in. And some of them might be more of like, sideline things like being on the CRT team, being on maybe the honor guard, because we always have a use for that. But, some of the other things, it might be, a counselor position. It could be, moving up through the ranks. It might be, a specific assignment. You might want to, be running out there on the court circuit, or you might want to be doing, medical transports. There's so many different things that you can get involved in. Now you see corrections really, implementing and deploying, more canine units to go out there and, find the dope, find the cell phones, things like that. There's just a whole host of different opportunities and things that you can glom onto. And so when you start out in this career, and it's not functionary, but when you start out at that basic position, as being, and I don't want to say just an officer, but at the officer level, there's a whole world that's, out there waiting for you. And, you can take that and say, hey, well, what I really want to do now is I want to get onto the transportation team, or maybe I want to get into the, gang investigations. Maybe later on you want to get into, probation or parole, but you can map out, a career that takes you either where you want to go or in the direction to give you the skills that you're going to need for something that you have not even thought of yet. And that's one of the great things about corrections is there's a lot of those opportunities out there. This is not just something to get into and wait until something else comes along. You can start out and from the very get-go be able to, plot out, where you're going to end up, or at least have a direction to go in.
Yeah, and guys, I know we tend to do a lot of job fairs, and I think the big concern we have now, and I'm thinking about it as Russ was speaking too, is that however we sell the profession to the job at the job fairs, does that translate to the people that are in the field that need to know that so they can keep people motivated? Because again, you're selling an image, but we on the field have to be in line with that image, or else it does become I guess false advertisement, but it's more false advertisement because there's no connection between what you're selling for the recruitment and what we're doing behind the wall. So I think that we have to have definitely some shared partnership in that. I think that's something that needs to be expressed. Do we communicate? Because it's not always going to be the same divisions, especially if you work for bigger agencies. That's what made me think about it with Russ is, the recruitment side may never even enter the facility. So they could be pushing on all these things that the profession has to offer, but then when they get behind the wall, it's like, well, no one's mentioning that. Well, because we didn't know that we offer that. We may not even know that. So having said that, we definitely have to be on the same page, because however you are making initiatives or creating something new, that needs to get translated to the people that are going to be next to them, because when the rookies have questions that are based on those initial incentives, does the people on the field know that, oh, you mean you can get money back for going to school? I didn't know that. No one told me that. So again, you got to make sure that whatever you're pushing connects to the people that are actually going to spend more time with the rookie. And to be honest with you, that's going to be the people in the field. The people in the field need to know. And the other thing is, just for the frontline supervisor, I think Joe could definitely even comment on this too, is that the initial investment to highlight the opportunities, not to seek them, but to highlight them, is on us. So we have to be aware of what they are. So we should be reaching out to recruitment and kind of just letting people know, hey, guys, by the way, we have these things. We need to know that. Having said that, after a while, it's up to the rookie then, or up to that individual, to start seeking them. We just have to make sure that people know that they exist and, maybe motivate them, coach them a little bit. But with that said, if the person doesn't have the initiative, I'm not telling you to go ahead and transform them. We push more about how to cultivate somebody. Cultivating is literally, hey, they got the spark. I'm going to help you find the flame. But if the person doesn't have the spark, there's only so much you could do. At that point, it's more about the effort. Hey, I told them, but they're not chasing after it. To be honest, this person probably didn't want to be in this profession to begin with. So I believe the intentional effort from the rookie matters in regards to seeking the opportunity as well once it's been showcased to them. What's your thoughts on this, Joe? Because there's a lot. And Joe, and I would love, and maybe even go back on Russ, because we never talked about that before either, but we'll start with Joe first. I think there should be a huge connectment with recruitment and with the staff that work the wall, because I think there's a lot of opportunities that both parties that one party is not aware of.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. I don't think we really showcase the career opportunities when we're doing recruitment. Most agencies nowadays just show your advertised salary and bonuses and just minor tangible things to get them in the door. We don't really showcase what career opportunities they actually have within the agency, whether it be in supervision or there's tons of different areas that a uniformed officer can go. Security threat groups, safe prisons program, or PREA, regional response teams, canine teams. There's a whole plethora of career opportunities, not just in supervision, but in the areas for correctional officers. And I really honestly think we don't showcase that enough because we're so hell bent on recruitment, on trying to get them in the door. We just show them the initial straight line in the front door with their salaries and possible bonuses and things of that nature. But yeah, I think it's supervision, even if we're not directly connected to the training program, all supervisors are considered a trainer. And I think we need to, talk with these officers and let them know that there's a plethora of career opportunities out there for them. I know that we used to get a lot of, our agency used to get a lot of military guys that were out on terminal leave, looking for a job that was paramilitary styled and that kind of got them in the door because it was something uniform with a little bit of structure. But when we start showcasing things that they can do within their career field, as far as, the regional response teams or canine or field force or, whatever the case may be, that kind of opened their eyes a little more to the, things that they could possibly achieve within their career. If they didn't have any desire to be a supervisor, we showcase the things that may fit their niche. Everybody has a niche when they come in the door, whether it's, communication skills, whether it's management, whether it's report writing, and I think we do need to showcase, all career opportunities. Cause like you said, there's a ton of different departments within the agency. and it's not just, the correctional officer field. There's tons of, for ex-police officers, internal affairs, for, ex-military, regional CERT teams, for the ones that have knowledge into computers, there's IT positions. There's so many different positions within the agency that I think we need to do a better job of showcasing what actual career opportunities they have their, the capabilities of having.
I love that, Joe. I actually just wrote this I have a leadership book coming out, and I'm going to make this actually a topic. I put, as a leader, all efforts or promises made to recruit staff must be translated and connected to those who will spend the most time with the rookies. I think that truly does matter. Joe, Russ, what's your thoughts about that? Do you see, hey, Russ, in your experience, have you seen promises made at recruitment that really just doesn't seem to connect with reality once they get behind the wall?
I don't know that I would say that what we tend to see is we just tend to see, like you said, what the wages are, and sometimes some bump ups from that. Like there'll be a little bonus maybe for having certain college courses or credits, or being bilingual, and some things like that. And I don't think that we pay enough attention to the things that you can use to avoid burnout, and because you can always, I think it's a great selling point when you say, hey, you know what? You get tired of this institution, you can transfer to another one, or you can make rank and go to a different one, or you can stay here and do something else. If you're gonna spend 20, 25, 30 years in a department, you want to be able to change things up, and I think that's great, because people can even just change their shift if they get tired. And I think that's a great selling point. You go to the outside world in some office, and that's not necessarily going to be the thing. You have a chance to promote up. Generally, it's inside the office, and you don't have a chance to really get out there and make things exciting for yourself. And I think that, corrections probably attracts people to some degree or another who are a little bit, who want a little bit more excitement in their life. And if that's what they want, you should be showing them everything that they can go out there and do. And, it just depends. Like for me, it was generally enough to get out there and, put down a riot here, catch a guy with a weapon there, find some dope, whatever it is. But, some people, they're, more driven to want to, fulfill their career. I had one of my friends that, he actually came in the department after me. He ended up being a warden. And so there's a lot of opportunity out there. And so it's possible to go from the ground floor to the penthouse. And I just think that that's one of the great things about corrections that nobody knows about and not very many people talk about.
Yeah, and this is going to kind of cross into our next one, but you made a good point, Russ, that I want to add. I might as well just jump this one in next because it makes sense and it deals with the cliches that we deal with. So everything that we mentioned right now, if you have staff that tend to lose their motivation at the very beginning, rookie staff, maybe there are promises that unfortunately doesn't translate well behind the wall. There are also concerns where things are going to be easy, and they're never going to be easy. Like at the end of the day, like Russ said, we could just switch shifts. Okay, but it's not automatic, but there's the effort to do it. I think that what people got to realize in the end is that once you're in this profession, there are many possibilities. There are possibilities, but it doesn't mean that it's guaranteed. But there are many possibilities. My biggest thing about this is I don't want people running away from something. I want them running towards something. So I don't want to use those possibilities as an escape, because then in their mind, the effort's going to be more on the agency to do what needs to be done for them. And that's not the case. It's always going to be our intentional efforts to correct what we feel needs to be corrected. So with that said, when you get people that are looking to, this part's overwhelming, I want to get over here, they start expecting other people to do it for them, and it's not the case. And then what happens is when those other people don't do it for them, they start to become impatient, knowing that, hey, a lot of this could take time. So it's the hope of the possibility that you can maybe make rank, but that doesn't mean rank's going to be given to you automatically, or, oh, you can always go to another shift. But at this time, unfortunately, we need people on this shift. It's more of the possibility connected with an effort, and then granted, you're still not in control of the outcome. I think for us, sometimes when we have issues, we look, some, not all, but some may look for the easiest way out. And usually the easiest way out turns to be dependent on somebody else, when we really have to do what we can in the meantime to cope with what we're going through, and then hopefully provide the effort. But we have to realize that we're not in control of the outcome. And I don't want people to feel trapped. And that's kind of what we have here. This profession can be very overwhelming. Obviously, we know that. And it could be a lot for a rookie to be come into this profession and just see what reality is. It's not an easy thing to cope with. Now, granted, there was a different mentality in corrections back then, where if somebody as a rookie saw something and they didn't know how to process it, most of us would just say, put on your big boy pants or put on your big girl pants and deal with it. And those were cliches that were like, here, expect the unexpected. So if I had a bad day, somebody would come up to me, hey, expect the unexpected. And then they would go back and say, man, I had to talk to the rookie today, and I really gave him some solid advice. Oh, what was the advice you gave me? He had a bad day. All this shit happened in front of him. So I just told him to expect the unexpected. Oh, that's great. That's what my senior officer told me. But no one really knows in context, what does that really mean? And how do we expect someone to expect the unexpected? It's really just a what and not a how. Things like Russ said before, just do your 8 and hit the gate. So that could be, again, people that could be overwhelmed and having a bad day. And then the best way to do is, hey, you only got to be here for 8 hours. That's not true anymore. I don't know if that was ever true, not even when I was a rookie. But I think just do your 8 and hit the gate means, hey, whatever you have here is here. You always can go home and escape. Yeah, that's not that easy. That's a hard transition. That requires the imbalance of turning one light on, turning one light off, whatever the whole phrases are. So that's a quick thing that people would say. And I think, and the last one is, corrections is not a stepping stone. I found that to be more of self-soothing. You would have a lot of people, or corrections is a stepping stone. You would find a lot of people that would have a bad day, and then they would remind themselves, well, I'm only here for a little bit until I become a police officer. And then they're still waiting for that phone call 20 years later. I think these all become statements that either internally soothe you, like corrections is a stepping stone, or for your peers who, you're going through something and the peer quickly says, hey, got to expect the unexpected. That may be something for them to be convenient with, because they don't want to get too deep into the concerns that you're really facing. So that's the quickest thing I can say, to just not invest in you like I should, but just to say, hey, expect the unexpected. Hey, okay, you good with that? You good? Okay, let me go back and, go eat my lunch. I think, to be honest with you, nowadays with the rookies, I think some people say they require some hand-holding, and I get it. I mean, it is a different breed, but I don't want to make it soft where people think that hand-holding. I don't like saying that. I like to say guidance. I think handheld makes it too soft. I think that we should have some guidance when people are coming into this profession. And my biggest concern is maybe all these years prior, because as we're doing these videos now, a lot of these videos do talk about, sometimes they conflict, and hear me out, guys, because this one's a good one for me. Sometimes they conflict. They say that the department doesn't do enough, but then our peers are also the ones giving advice that are so cliche, with no context. And then basically, I was trained to be this way. Okay, so we all know at one point this is wrong, but then we still continue to push the narrative. So maybe it's okay for me to say that maybe the one thing that we've been missing in this profession the whole time has been guidance. Maybe that's what it is. So maybe what we should start investing in is stop, saying handheld, because I think that's just people that want an excuse not to be invested in the guidance. I think that we should, if these are people coming in and we want them to be invested, let's see how we can cultivate them until we can't. It's that simple. That means that we don't expect someone to come in and give us 100% because they don't know what they're going into. And plus, to be honest with you, I don't want someone's 100% at that point that thinks they know everything and I don't have a chance to have an impact with them because you don't know everything. I want people to know when they need help, listen to guidance, have the courage to take that guidance and really apply it. And now we start to see someone being cultivated. But I'm going to go with Joe first and then Russ because there's a lot here. But having said that, if you look at everything we've done on Tier Talk, we're actually telling people or helping people, whether senior, new, we're guiding them. And if someone wants to sugarcoat and say we're holding hands today, I still think that's really just an extreme when we have to finally admit we need help in this profession. And the best way to get help is from people who have walked the walk. So I don't see nothing wrong with a rookie coming in and asking questions and for someone to come in and really talk them through the process of what they could be going through. Because if this profession is that hard, and we all know it is, why would we not expect that from our senior staff? You know, or do we go back to that simple sink or swim? What's your thoughts on that, Joe? Because there's a lot there. There is.
Yeah, I mean, you know, when it comes to the expect the unexpected, just do your 8, hit the gate, and corrections as a stepping stone. You know, the best thing that we can do as officers or even as supervisors is, you know, be truthful with the person coming in. You know, when they walk in the gate, they don't know what to expect because they barely know what their job functions are. They barely know the design of the facility. They barely know the layout. They barely know the inmates. And just telling them to expect the unexpected is kind of an unfair cliche to sling at somebody because, you know, hell, we all expect the unexpected, but we don't know what that really means, especially in a correctional setting. You know, expect the unexpected could be running across somebody with a shank. Expect the unexpected could be catching 2 male inmates having sexual relations in a cell. You know, the gamut of expect the unexpected from one end to the other, the spectrum of it is just too broad. You know, be truthful, you know, be enlightening, you know, be honest and sincere when you're teaching these officers. You know, don't just sling the cliches at them and expect them to just totally understand something when they're just walking in the door while you already have 20 years in the system. You know what to expect. They don't. So enlighten them. Let them know what to expect. You know, just not from, you know, the offender side, but from the staff side too. You know, you got to be totally upfront and honest. You know, the just do your 8 and hit the gate portion. You know, this is one of those cliches that could be used positively or negatively. And, you know, that's one that I never really liked because of the fact that, you know, when you're just telling somebody to just do your 8 and hit the gate, you're telling somebody, hey, don't go above and beyond. Just do your bare minimum. Just do your 8 and hit the gate. You know, the positive side of it is, you know, when you do your 8 and hit the gate, you know, I used to use it as try not to bring work home with you. You know, do your 8, hit the gate, leave it behind you. You know, don't take it home. You've already had a stressful day. There's no sense in taking that stress home with you as well. You know, find some way in between work and home to burn that stress off. You know, like I said, it can be used in a positive note or it can be used as a negative note, but we need to focus more on promoting it positively if we're still going to use that cliche, you know, because like I said, that's one of those that can be used for you or against you. You know, corrections is a stepping stone. You know, I kind of said the same thing when I first walked in the facility. Wasn't sure how long I was going to be there. Wasn't sure what I wanted to do. I just knew that I was an officer in a facility. And, you know, when I came in, nobody really enlightened me as to all the things that can be done, you know, in a uniform position. Like I mentioned earlier, you know, STG, you know, I just knew there were people in those positions. I just didn't know what those positions were about or if they could be obtained as an officer. You know, we need to make sure that we're not promoting the image that, you know, we're just here for a short period of time. We need to be promoting the fact that, you know, this is a career. This is something that can be good for you. This is something that can be good for your family. And this is something that you can be good for the agency. You know, we need to quit promoting this as a temporary step. It's not a temporary step. This is a career. and that's what we need to be focused on promoting.
I agree. And Russ, what's your thoughts? Because there's a lot there too. Russ, what's your thoughts on all this?
Yeah, I think that the way we were, if we want to put it that way, is not the way we should have been, and the way we are now isn't really that much better. I think that we need to look at what it takes to actually, like you said, get in there and cultivate these young skulls full of mush and bring them up into a culture and a setting that serves everybody. It serves the public, it serves them, it serves the interest of the department. And so, when I look back at some of the things that happened to me, some of the situations that I was put in as a rookie, it was not well thought out. Let's put it that way. The way that the department dealt with things, and so my not my first day, but my first shift working an actual shift, was death row. And, I got there plenty early and everything and went up there, and how was I treated? I mean, the silent treatment, the guy takes all of his gear off. I'm there 40 minutes early, ready to go and have him, pass on some good information and run things down to me. And he just sets all of his stuff on the table and boom, takes off. Not one word. And I was like, whoa, what is going on here? And then I've got the serial killer in the first cell there on the fifth tier, telling me, hey, here's what you're going to do. You're going to go down and handcuff such and such, and then you're going to take the phone down the tier and leave it with him. And he's giving me all this information. I'm like, man, am I seriously considering taking advice from a serial killer on death row on how I'm going to operate this? And so, bringing people in and then just, leaving them to their own devices is not safe. It doesn't connect them. It does not connect them to the family, as it were. And it leaves an opportunity for security breaches. And so I think that, what we should do is, we should definitely be more welcoming. We should watch what happens with regards to kind of these cliches. And I know we'll say those every now and then to get a laugh, but we have to be careful that we're not really inculcating them into our personalities so much that becomes the person that we actually are. And, I would see it in some of the things that I did over the years where, I would be told, hey, you know what, you're just doing too much, and too much was, taking all of these weapons off of this particular yard and finding cell phones and dealing with dope and helping to validate gang members. I mean, too much. Think about that for a minute. Too much. So I think that there's really no such thing as too much. And so it becomes idolized too, instead of being efficient and doing things, and whether you want to call it going above and beyond or not, but being actually making an impact in the safety and security. But telling people that that's too much, impacting safety and security. What is it that we're really doing? Are we professionals when we say things like that? I would think that what we want to do is we want everyone that's coming up through the ranks to pay that kind of attention to things and to be out there and to not just be a functionary in a spot and a just a filler, just a warm body. Hey, he's got a pulse. How many times do we say that? Hey, he's just got a pulse. That makes him qualified to hold this position where, life and death options could come at him at any moment. So you know what? Rethink that. You know what? If you're an officer and you've got some experience on you and you know what's going on, why should you not be bringing these individuals, up underneath your wing and showing them and talking to them? Are you saying, well, you know what? That's not my job. That's for the FTO to do. No, it's everybody's responsibility. Safety and security belongs to us all. And so we need to really take those extra measures. And I've been through enough of that, the things that I could tell you where, these rookies, they stumble in to these things where the cool crowd is the crowd of the culture that we want to stomp out. Right. And instead, they become, enamored with just caring as little as possible, doing as little as possible, and never ever really coming into their own and being able to be that full-fledged, accepting all the power, all the responsibility, all the authority that comes with being a correctional officer. So, and so that's why this is a job for everybody to do, to bring these people along. And I'm not just talking about the rookies now, but, guys with intermediate experience and guys with, super amounts that are, they're not just journeyman correctional officers now, they're actually the masters. All of them still need to be included. And that's where lots of departments, lots of institutions are failing.
I agree with that. All right, so this next one comes from Russ. Basically, help the rookies achieve successes, and then help them cope through failures. Russ, how important is this? I mean, not just back in the day, because this was always important, but definitely more so now.
So one of the things about, fulfilling your authority as a correctional officer is going in there and doing authoritative things, that lie within the inner and outer perimeter of what's defined in the penal code as your duties and as your responsibilities. So one of the things I talked about before is doing too much. Seeing a lot of officers just, forget about the authority that you have and do the bare minimum. Well, what I like to do is I like to find those individuals that would approach me and ask me, that question: how do you do what you do? And because I was known for finding weapons and dope and cell phones and helping to validate gang members and any number of other things. And so I would always take them under my wing because I wanted them to develop those skills, which is really important. But it's not just the skills that are important. It's the mindset and the idea that you're plugged into doing something that brings value to the public, value to the institution, value to the department. Lots of bad things happen out there to various departments, that detract from what they're really doing or shed light on some nonsense that they've been involved in. And we at the lower level can actually really impact that by being plugged in and doing those things, those authoritative things, where we are stopping crimes or we're discovering crimes and we're making things safer, making people less likely to act out in violence or escape or all of these other things. And so that's my message is, bringing those rookies, those early successes, finding a weapon, finding some dope, finding a certain tattoo on a guy, solving a crime. Maybe we had somebody, stabbed or shanked or beat up, and we're going in there and we're checking upper bodies, and we're finding some scrapes or bumps and bruises, and taking someone into custody, moving them through the process to go into seg until we can either investigate it further or there's no longer a threat and people can be brought back or shipped out, writing up disciplinaries and teaching them the crafts that are necessary to impact that safety and security. And that's what you hope that all of them will like doing, or features of that. And so getting them those early successes, but then at the same time addressing, because there's going to be failure along the way. You have to fail until you can succeed. And so, maybe they're going to have, a missed signal that they should have on, some incident that happens. And that's going to happen, even to the best of us. Maybe they didn't write their report quite so tightly, and somebody was able to, get off on some technicality, or they just didn't put enough information in there. And so we're going to do what? We're going to cure that. We're going to fix it so that next time they understand better what's going on. Maybe their communication skills in a certain situation weren't quite up to snuff. And so we tell them, hey, this is what I do with inmates. You have to be your own person, but it really helps if you do X, Y, and Z. I used to have this thing, I was always tell them, so, you're communicating with inmates, be specific, but be short. They have very short attention spans. And so you want to do things where You give them, an A and B option, not a bunch of different stuff, because that's not going to go over well. And a whole spiel on how to talk to inmates. And so I would do this, and that would bring them along. That would get them plugged into the process. That would get them to start thinking like me. And people can judge whether that's a good thing or not. But to be able to understand that they're not just there to release people in and out and to do an occasional, security check. They're there to be preemptive and proactive, not just observe and respond, but to actually get in there and do things that are going to make the difference. And that's one of the ways that you bring people into a position where they want a long career, they want to be plugged in, they want to do things that make them feel valuable and invaluable as part of being in corrections, not just, hey, you're doing too much. And that's my 2 cents worth.
No, I think that's spot on, Russ. And what's your thoughts on that, Joe?
Yeah, I mean, everybody as an individual has successes and failures, and hell, our daily lives, let alone our careers. From a supervisory standpoint, I can tell you that, my first priority was to know the individuals, know them all. Know about them, know about their families, know their strong points, know their weak points. Our job is to help them achieve the successes. Some people are stronger in some areas than others, and I try to utilize that in a team environment, especially when it comes to uses of forces or, things that, you got some that, know how to cope with their adrenaline and keep a situation calm. You have some that don't. You have some that are better report writers than others. So it was our job to help them succeed in the areas that they were strong in. The big thing, from a supervisory standpoint is everybody's going to fail, yourself included. Everybody is going to fail at some point in time. But, the question is, how do we pick them up, dust them off, give them the constructive criticism that they need in order to, turn their failures into a success without demeaning their individuality or demeaning their professionalism. That's where, we as supervisors come in. You got to understand that not everybody comes in the door perfect, and nobody's ever going to come in the door perfect. So, we try to utilize the successes whenever we can, and we try to help them work on their weak points. But, my thing was, and I remember it as a CO, when I fell on my ass, I had supervisors that, that picked me up, dust me off, said, look, dude, your heart was in the right place, but, unfortunately your head was up your ass. Don't do that anymore. Don't do it again. Yes, sir. Drive on. Do your job. Thank you for what you do. And then you had them supervisors that, would just yell and scream and just mean you in front of everybody. That's not what we're designed to do. That's not what we need to do. And that's not what we're going to do. What we're going to do is we're going to let you know where you fell short. We're going to let you know how you fell short. And then we're going to let you know how we correct that action without, demeaning your entire career over one incident. So, as supervisors and administrators, we need to understand that not everybody comes in that door perfect.
I love that. I think, I agree, guys. I think when you're coming in and you're new, you don't have any experience, you don't have any wins. We got to help them create some. I mean, enough to, keep them motivated, but not filling their head with, cockiness, just enough to keep them motivated, because at the end of the day, the biggest thing we have here is we want staff to have something they can balance the failures from. I mean, you are going to have failures. I think a senior officer deals with failures a bit differently than a rookie, because a senior officer may have some wins under their belt, and they're able to balance that with the failures. And you also have, as for rookies, you don't. So what could be situational, a rookie will wind up internalizing, whereas a senior staff may be able to develop a healthy method of coping by being able to truly relate to the situation and not draw something internally. Because again, dealing with failures are our chance to grow and develop. So you need someone next to you to kind of keep you motivated, keep you inspired, and basically help you get through it until you're able to build some confidence as you maneuver through the day-to-day. As for the successes, as I said, like Russ said, it balances out, because if you have someone and you want them to kind of start taking initiative, they aren't going to be perfect. So basically, we got to kind of tell them where they're at, what they've done good, and this is what you could do better. And that really does relate to our working relationship with the rookies coming in. This is part of the guidance. It's not sink or swim, because this wasn't done for me, to be honest with you. This was more of sink or swim. You waited for the consequences, and we can't allow that to happen, especially during these times. So I think that's definitely something that will help them, because, again, guys, investment can come in different reasons. People could leave the profession for different reasons. There could be people that just had enough. There could be people that don't think they're good enough. Like I can't do this job. I'm all alone here. So you got to really know what is motivating that person to go the other way, and see if maybe there's a misunderstanding. Like for someone who wants to leave this profession because they're not good enough, well, maybe we can help with that and build their confidence and help them become good enough. But if there's someone who doesn't believe the profession has value or purpose, well, there's another approach. Let me show you what I do all day. Let me show you how what I do has significance to the bigger picture. So knowing why somebody is trying to leave is a great way to try to maybe have a different approach, because you're actually talking to the individual. All right, so let's see. Let's get to the next one. Might as well stay with this one. Have the right training officers in place that know how to motivate and inspire by providing meaning or purpose of the work. So let's start with Joe first. Joe, what's your thoughts on this?
Having the right person in your field training officer position is of the utmost importance. You don't want somebody in that position that's going to do the bare minimum and teach the basics of the job. You want somebody who's going to provide the purpose to the incoming employees, to give them a better understanding of why we do what we do. Anybody can go in there and teach the basics. That's what the academies are for. Your job as an FTO is to teach them about the facility, teach them about the inmate culture, teach them about their jobs in a deeper meaning, not just, sticking to the basics of what their job functions are. Make them understand why it's important that they do what they do. Make sure you emphasize to them that, every decision that they make has a reaction or a consequence. Make them understand why they have to do what they do. You can put anybody in that position to teach the basics. You want somebody there who's going to give that job a deeper meaning for these officers.
I agree with that. To me, that's the key of what we talked about before, and what we got to translate to the officers on the floor, if they're not one and the same from recruitment to training. If recruitment's pushing inspirational stuff, motivation, purposeful career, family environment, that's a big thing too. We have to make sure that rookie on day one gets all that. That's 100% on us. So I agree. What's your thoughts on that, Russ?
Having those right people in place is essential, and we'll see, often, there's places now that, have dedicated field training officers, and to use the term dedicated a little more loosely, if you will, is we want those people to actually be dedicated, not be there just for, whatever little, extra stipend they get, or just because, hey, they've been in long enough now that somebody threw them a bone to do that. But we want people, who really do care about, bringing people along, not people that are there to, harass and intimidate and just completely, blow things up. Because I've seen guys that were like that in positions like that, and they're no good at it. They need to be able to bring people along. And that's the key word, is to move people from one level of professional acumen to another level of professional acumen, and do it in a way that, not just the acumen part of that, but actually to become enthusiastic about it, so that they in turn having been taught something, can teach it to someone that's alongside or below whatever their station is. This is the way that we keep those, hard-earned training dollars within the department, and not just to where people go, you know what, I give up. I can't take assholes like this. I'm going to quit. So, and you know what, and that is a strategy, really, that departments should be taking on. They should be idealizing the idea about retention and doing the things to keep people, in not in place, but within the department, so that all of that hard work isn't just lost. Because if you're just losing personnel, what are you losing? Well, you're losing those training dollars to start with, of course, but you're also losing experience, and you're also losing, the other time invested by people who are trying to bring them along. So don't do that. Do things, purposefully and intentionally, and make sure that what you're doing is actually taking root and growing, and that you're able to pass that down to the next level or to the next generation.
And it's funny because as you said that, you're going to see, I text you the passage I just wrote. And at the very end, Russ, we're definitely seeing the same thing, because I put down, as a leader, knowing what brought someone into this profession, knowing how they initially connected to it matters if you're looking to go past just recruiting and moving towards retaining. I think somehow we get so caught up with the fact that we got the number, we're good. And then, to be honest with you, it's really superficial at best, because we got the number, but are we keeping the number? Because you get 5 and 20 more leave. So, the initial investment into recruiting should also involve the maintaining, so we do things more long-term and less short-term. And for me, I have to agree with everything you're saying. I want field training officers that know how to sell the profession, know how to motivate people, especially during these tough times. Can you teach them, how to look and find things that have value, so we can continue them onto this path? Because I think most people know, to some extent, what they're getting into. I mean, obviously, you're working in a prison. I would like to think that it's not going to be all hunky-dory, but now the extent of what they're getting into is what we need to help cultivate them through. So it's like, if I was hiring someone that was going into corrections and their initial thought was it's all going to be rainbows and shit, then I don't think that person's even meant to be in this profession. I don't see a spark at that point. But if you got someone that says, yeah, I know I'm going to be working in something tough, but I'm trying to prepare myself for it, okay, then that gives us something to keeping that person moving forward. But with that said, you're never going to be ready. And you're just going to be prepared. I think that's what good training officers do. But you also need training officers that are dealing with the day-to-day as well. I mean, let's be honest. I mean, they got to have some amount of time where they're on the floor, either networking or just, really seeing what the officers are going through, and not remaining in their office because they believe the training is a perk post. It's not. To me, it's probably one of the hardest posts that you can have. So, and because that requires you to continue to get up and move and understand the actual day-to-day work, and not be training on past practices that can no longer be applied at your facility. And the PowerPoint you're using is dated from the person that retired and gave it to you. So, for me, the biggest thing with us when we get trained is I have to connect with the person who's doing the training. If I don't connect with them, even if their lessons are spot on, my failure to connect will question everything that they're saying, because I need to connect with the individual. And how do you do that? Initial connection may be through experience of that individual. It may be through the experience of is that, imagine me, new to this profession, coming in, and I'm being trained by somebody who I haven't seen on the floor since I got there. And years later, they're still never on the floor. Oh, they could have been on the floor years before I got in. And that's great. But I still haven't seen how they roll. So I think it would be good for them to see the training officers in action once in a while. Get to the next one. Wait, do you guys agree with that, or am I wrong?
No, it's absolutely true.
Totally.
We don't want staleness to take over. A person that's not out there on the floors and on the yards and working in that environment loses all kinds of perishable skills, everything from the words that come out of their mouth to the way that they look and interpret the signals that the inmates are giving off.
Yeah. And it just goes to show, my big thing here is what you're still teaching, can it still be applied? I mean, God forbid you got someone who's teaching these rookies who are trying to, follow the advice blindly in some cases, and they're following lessons that no longer apply into this new dynamic of correction. So, and then they wind up, we have this huge conflict. Well, the conflict's coming from the trainer who's still teaching older methods to a world that no longer utilizes them. Okay, so the last one, this one to me is the most important. By the way, this is an all-inclusive list, just a couple of things to be mindful of. And this is, I want to say it's simple, but accept them. Trust is not earned. Distrust is earned. Screw the sink first swim method. Introducing them to the human side of the profession. I'll go first for part of this. I truly believe that some of us have these excuses not to interact with the rookie staff. And I think when a rookie first comes in, it is on us. The intentional effort to introduce the profession to the correctional rookie, give them a chance to learn so eventually they can contribute and be innovative. That's on us. We got to provide them the initial environment for them to be willing to do that. The sink first swim, waiting for them to fail, not knowing that a failure for a rookie, as I said, is more detrimental than someone who's senior staff. This rookie's coming in, doesn't have an understanding of the profession, doesn't have an understanding of how to build up from a failure. Especially if you start to ridicule them, you're destroying their self-esteem the moment they come into this profession. So, you got to be there, and then more importantly, support them through the failure and relate to them. Hey, I wasn't perfect when I came in. These are the mistakes that I made when I came in. So remind them that, it's human error. You just can't let them. I know a lot of people like, well, I learned through the consequences. Yeah, but that may not always be the best way to learn. I think to be honest with you, I think we learn from shared experience of each other. Because here's the thing. It's funny, and maybe you guys could think of this when you guys speak, but we've had people tell us that learning from failure, I mean, literally in their mind, learning from letting someone fail, let someone going through all the consequences at the very beginning is the best way to learn. And look at the extreme of that. We work in corrections. But also, I find that the best way to learn is guiding someone before they could actually make that extreme failure. I mean, maybe there's some things where, from a distance, let them see this play out. But this is corrections. You don't know where these consequences could lead. So I think it's also good to stay connected to that individual and let them know, hey, hold on, before you do that, let me explain what's going on and what's going to wind up happening and blah, 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 instead of them having to go through that extreme failure, because they may not be able to pick themselves back up from that at the very beginning, especially in the gossip world of corrections, where people twist what happens, and now the person is hard to find confidence because he's the talk of the compound or she's the talk of the compound. So you got to realize something. It's not so much about the lesson you can learn from the failure, but part of the consequences that we may not take into account for is the rumor mill. The people that would like to jump on the train and just constantly ridicule the person till the person just winds up getting embarrassed, and then just says, fuck this, I'm out. And then the other part of that is the human side of the profession. This is something that most of us don't introduce to the rookies. It's okay to be human. It's okay to be vulnerable. It's okay to have a bad day. It's okay to feel a certain way. It's okay to not be tough all day, whatever it is. Because at the end of the day, if you don't introduce them to that human side of the profession, they're going to expect to have to be this person of perfection. And however you subjectively interpret that, because they're going to get that interpretation not from themselves, they're going to get it from you. They're not going to get it from how they feel they need to be. They're going to get it from how you feel that perspective is. So I think, speaking to the rookies and introducing them to that side and letting them know that we're not expecting perfection in this profession. We're expecting people that, are willing to do the job, step up, take initiative, but are also honest with themselves so we can work at this thing together, the family side of corrections. But I'll go with Russ first and then Joe. What's your thoughts on all this, Russ?
So, putting people in a position where they're accepting, the rookies in, and they're truly doing things that look out for them is really where it's at, because that is the way, rookies start out and they're, kind of tender, and they're not, really exposed to the elements yet. And so they haven't built up any bit of, the coping skills that you need to be in this type of profession. And so, it's an important juncture. What is it, and where is it that these rookies are going to end up at? And, I talked about earlier, being, early for, relieving a guy, and, just the way I'm treated, just like, hey, you know what? No communication, no nothing. And that was the way it was largely done back then, and I contrast that against what happened to me later in that day. I got held over. So what a welcome to corrections, right? The very, very first day, held over, looking at another 8 hours, and so I got my instructions as to how to find where I was even going. As you can imagine, San Quentin's just, a massive sprawling complex. But I ended up in this little runway up on what they called North Block, the Shelf, and it was death row, but it was kind of like isolated from the rest of the prison. And so we had these runways that had ports in it, so you could stick your sidearm through there and shoot if necessary. And so officers would come onto the floor there, and you would shadow them, and you were the protection for them from these inmates, if necessary, because they don't have anything to lose. They're sentenced to death. And so anyway, I'm just kind of doing this, just kind of, rotely. And, there was another gunner on the other side, and he kind of ran some things down. It was really good, really very different from earlier on in the day. And I was like kind of coming down from all of that. And anyway, and I never realized this until maybe a month or two later. But the sergeant was there, and the sergeant came out and he said, "Hey, I'm gonna go down the tier a little bit." And so I said, "Okay." And so I walked with him down to the tier, and he stopped at this one cell, and he just began talking to this inmate, and I was just wondering, where is this going? Because he's just holding a conversation with this guy, and it's rambling and wide ranging, and this inmate is, telling him all kinds of things about, how he used to help people and do this and that, and what a great individual this inmate was. I didn't know who this guy was, right? And so anyway, this went on for probably, I'm going to say, like 40 minutes, And so I'm thinking back to all the stuff in the academy, like what's really going on here? This sergeant seems like he's taking a long time, is he being over familiar, and stuff. But he got done talking, and so, I've just naturally, I've got questions, but we're not in a position where any of those questions can be answered because there's things to do and things to run. So the sergeant, he looks over at me and he's like, hey, come on down here. And so we got away, between the fence where we could talk to him. And he says, now the reason I had that whole conversation was for your benefit, and I'm thinking like, my benefit, what's this guy doing? He says, that inmate just spent a lot of time telling me, how good he was and the things he used to do out there in the outside world. And, you would make it think that, over time, having conversations like that, you could fall into a level of trust with this guy and believe the bullshit that he's telling. He says, I want you to always remember this, that individual right there kidnapped 2 boys, took them out into the woods, and shot both of them in the head. And then after he was done shooting them in the head, he took the food that he had stole from them at a Burger King and went ahead and just consumed it like it was nothing. No regrets, no remorse, and all this over a bank robbery that he would later pull off after he left this particular crime scene. And that struck me. From that point on, here is a sergeant taking the time with me to explain the things that I needed to be concerned about to stay safe. and to realize, that people can be manipulated. People can start to let their guard down. And, that particular individual was Robert Alton Harris. And the crime that he committed was well known because he was the first inmate that they carried out the death penalty on after a hiatus of like 30 something years, I believe it was. So, this is an investment. This sergeant invested in me. Later on, this would turn into me doing my best to try and invest in other people. And the lesson that he carried out and the way he did it was fantastic because it stuck with me all the way to this day. And there needs to be more of that. The sink or swim thing is absolute bullshit. So anyway, I just wanted to tell that story to illustrate, the difference in potential and the difference in styles or lack of style that there is out there. So I hope that makes sense, what I was trying to get at.
No, it's good. And we need the stories because the stories help relate the information to the people who need the context. And what's your thoughts on this, Joe?
Our job as employees, regardless whether you're frontline correctional officers or frontline supervisors, our job is to give the tools to these incoming employees to keep them from committing the failures. That's what we're supposed to do. Not just as employees, but as people. We give other people tools so they don't fail. When you say that, trust is not earned or distrust is earned, to me, I trust everybody until they give me a reason not to. I never really did agree 100% on the sink or swim personality. Sometimes we all have those one or two employees that come in and think they know everything. You've had that discussion with them. You've tried to give them the tools to not fail, but they have it in their mind that they're going to do it this way anyway. And there are some times that, as long as it doesn't cause, physical injury to them or anybody else, sometimes you have to let that process play out and let them see, because telling them verbally, they don't quite understand. They just have to see it play out and learn the hard way, unfortunately. But, generally we're supposed to give them the tools to make sure they don't fall on our ass, because if we don't, that's on us. We're the ones that are supposed to be teaching them. They're not supposed to be teaching us. And they also need to, and it's true, they need to understand the human side of the profession too. There's sometimes that we as individuals, hear things and see things that are outside the normal of a correctional setting, that we need to take into account for, because there's going to be times that we need to make decisions as a human, versus making decisions as a profession. I think we need to develop a way to make sure that we have people in place that will give the incoming cadets or incoming, trainees, OJTs, whatever you want to call them, the tools to actually not fail.
That's it, yeah. Sorry, Joe. You had that pause. I didn't know if that was, but you're 100% correct. I mean, that's why we do what we do. We have to stay connected to the people that are coming into this profession right from day one, because we are cultivating them. If we don't stay connected to them, if we don't accept them when they come in, basically we're pushing them out. I mean, I know people may see it to be, is that extreme? I don't think so. I think a lot of people are looking for that initial connection. And when they don't receive that initial connection, because for them, it's something that they extremely want, subjectively, if you don't connect with them, you're pushing them away. And whether we agree with it or not, that's how they're going to see it, because the want to be connected is so meaningful to them that the moment they're not, you don't have to actively push them away for them to feel that they're being pushed away. And I do think, and touching on what Joe and Russ said, touching on the human side of the profession allows for them to embrace vulnerability right from the get-go. And I think that's really key, because at the end of the day, we're not looking for people that want to impress each other. We're looking for people that, yes, know how to do the job, of course, don't get me wrong, but they understand that we're not perfect and it's okay to express it, because if you don't, then you're going to operate when you shouldn't be doing the job. So I think that's the biggest concern we have in corrections is we may have people that are able to do the job, but today, are they capable? After what just happened yesterday, are they capable? So if we don't allow for that level of openness in the environment, we will have people in fear that will work when they truly aren't capable. And to be honest with you, if we're really to be a family, if Russ has a bad day, maybe I'll pick up some of the work from Russ today. Give him that chance to, sit back and, do what he needs to do. And you know what? Maybe I'll cover for Joe too, because Russ has a good relationship with Joe. So, let me see what I can do to see if I can get Joe to, talk to Russ. And what do you got today, Joe? What do you got, Russ? Let me see what I can do. Let me see if I can get that handled, because people may come to work thinking that they have to. And yes, we need them. Sometimes they can't avoid being at work because maybe you're right. Maybe physically they have to be there. But with that said, we also want them to mentally be there, and that's on us. I mean, if they show up and they're physically there and we know something's wrong, maybe we could work with them to help address any concerns that they may have. As long as they're honest with us, we could work with them. Hey, let's go with Joe first. Anything you'd like to say in closing, Joe?
Yeah, absolutely. First and foremost, our job, our profession is not a cliche. It's a statement. The statement that you make to the incoming employees today will leave a lasting impression tomorrow. So don't treat it as a cliche. Give them the tools that they need to succeed. Make sure we're observing the processes that they're conducting. And, if you're an FTO, maybe you need to take a step back and observe your own process. Are you getting mundane in your position? Or are we doing everything within our power to give them every tool and every capability that we can think of in order to succeed at their job functions? For the supervisors and administrators, we need to not only ensure that the FTO process is in place, we need to observe it with our own eyes to make sure that, we're ensuring that our FTO officers have all the tools and capabilities that they can have in order to teach our incoming cadets. We need to make sure that, success isn't just one part of the chain. It's the entire chain. If you have a bad link, and I'm not saying because they're a dirty boss, I'm just saying because they're lacking in some areas, we need to correct that. We need to make sure that, the process is not only fluid, but it's informative, it's full of knowledge, it's full of hands-on application. And we need to make sure that everybody within the process has the tools available and all the resources at their disposal in order to make this, a better transition for the cadets. We need to make sure that they feel like that they're part of the team and not just a next door neighbor. We need to make sure that they have the knowledge and everything that they need as an individual into the processes as to why we do it. So they have a better understanding. Just telling them is not, it doesn't, I don't want to say it doesn't give them a sense of completeness. But in generally it doesn't, just because, well, why are we doing this? Because I said so. That doesn't tell me why we're doing the process. It doesn't tell me why we're complete. It doesn't give me for me, that's an incomplete sentence. That doesn't give me a closure on why we do what we need to do, because that doesn't tell me what I need to do in the future because I said so. That's that's the way we've always done it. Those are two statements I never could stand in a correctional setting. So don't be that person. Be that person that gives them the knowledge. Be that person that gives them the insight.
I love that. And then what's your thoughts, Russ?
Yeah, not just the knowledge and insight, but the way that we initially present ourselves is so important. All of these people, they should be, welcomed into the fold with open arms, and it really, really, I believe, makes a difference. And I've had one of the things that I used to do is I used to take a lot of the cadets, on rounds with me. One of the things that one of the institutions that I worked at used to do is they would just say, okay, so the cadets are coming in and we're going to do mass searches, and mass searches have a use, but the use is primarily, for the institution. In that, these people, they're going to have a career where they're learning to search and so forth. And it might be instructional for them to see some of the things that inmates have and so forth. But instead, why not, take them out there and show them some actual things rather than just, hey, you guys go into this dorm or that cell and tear it apart. What's the purpose of that? It's not instructional. No one's watching them very much or anything. And instead, what I would do is, I would take them around. I would point out things to them. I would show them how to conduct a proper pat down body search. I would show them, how to apply, handcuffs, and I would instruct them on what to look for with regards to body language, and that welcoming feel that they got, where we were out there, doing, actual instruction and observation. And from that point, actually doing some searches and catching some inmates at things like Pruno and things like that, far better than the mass search aspect. And, I had guys, approach me later and say, man, that was one of the best parts of the training of the whole academy. And, that warmed my heart. And so I think that, actually being that welcoming and that accessible is really important. I think accessibility, where a person feels like they can go up and ask you anything, really makes all the difference. And I think that that's one of the things truly that, like, Keepers of Chaos and Tier Talk, have really put out there, is we get approached by people all the time, and we're always accessible. And I think that people are a little bit stunned by that, because of some of the experiences that they've had in other realms of corrections. And so I just invite everybody, if I can possibly help you, if Joe can possibly help you, if Anthony can possibly help you, we will.
Yeah, and guys, it's crazy to know that some people connect more to us than they do their own immediate peers or supervisors. And I think the connection really relates to the frequency, or the openness, or the accessibility, as opposed to just where we may be in our correctional journeys, but rather how quick we ought to respond and provide advice. And guys, again, this is just to maintain investment. Another angle that we could try to explore, because we are at that time now where, recruitment is needed, but also retention. I mean, we don't just recruit and forget about them. We got to keep them in the profession. So hopefully you guys enjoyed the dialogue. As always, the show is Tier Talk. If you haven't, please subscribe, interact, engage, comment, hit that bell. Bell's going to notify you every time I post my video. Stay safe.